Well, what's it? So you've been out of Hong Kong for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And, I want to understand what it's like for you being out and not really feeling like you can go back, because I know that a lot of Hong Kongers living overseas are now facing that. So like, what has that been like for you? Like, you basically escaped, right?
I'm not on any wanted list, but the Tai Kung and Wen Weibao back in 2014, they always write things about me because first of all, it's the umbrella movement. Before that, there's the Occupy Central started by Benny Tai, Professor Tai, Chan Kin Man, and then Reverend Chu. And then besides these three, they have so-called the Chinese media portray us as the 10 martyrs, meaning people from the finance industry, from publication, from education. I represent, for some reason, we were called the 10 martyrs. So suddenly, Tai Kung and Wen Weibao, they write about the Occupy Trio plus the 10 martyrs, right? But then, what? Honestly, what we have done is we are strong defender of the two systems, but maybe that's not good enough. They need the version 2.0, the Rolex version, the fake Rolex version that we should succumb and abide by, right? How does it feel to be outside? I first landed in Vancouver. It was lonely in the sense that I was carrying the last copy of Apple Daily. I got a stack of it. I went to Alberta, Edmonton, Calgary, and then I drove down to other places like San Francisco, and then tell what's going on. And I flew all the way to Toronto. And I did a U-shaped, actually an O-shaped thing just this past summer. I started in Toronto, go down to Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Georgia, just to meet up with the Hong Kong people, and then to Texas, and then drive down to California, and then Seattle, Vancouver, and then go all the way back, meeting up with those who left recently, and then see how they resettle. And then there's groups too who help people to resettle, some through the normal channel, some through political asylum to Canada. So for that part, I cannot disclose too much, but we are active trying to help people to resettle after they lost so-called the old Hong Kong that they believe in, because they think the Hong Kong government, the officials, they are not up to standard, and they betray the Hong Kong people by not living up to the Deng Xiaoping 1.0 model. As simple as that.
Well, it seems to me the Hong Kong can never return to what it was as long as the CCP still rules Hong Kong and China.
Well, that's why some people say only the sky, right? 天灭中共. I think that's it.
Heaven destroys the CCP.
Yeah. But then
heaven needs to get off its butt.
Yeah. I don't know where, but I think God will make the ultimate judgment. I'm a Christian, and then we work together with the Catholics, and then we have lots of praying sessions inside churches to pray for Hong Kong. Honestly, we pray for Cardinal Zhang and people who are Christians, Catholics, or even atheists. I mean, I hope they will not be persecuted. I mean, waking up in fear at like 6:30 a.m. in the morning, because that's when the NSL police will raid someone, right? Yeah.
But I think that's beautiful. You've got Protestants praying for Catholics. I mean, the CCP brought these groups together.
Yeah. I mean, in unity, same God, right? Like Christians and Catholics definitely they believe in the meaning of Christ's crucifixion. As I guess the last word I want to say for Jimmy Lai, even though he is not free, while inside prison, he has sketching. He did sketchings. He sent it to some one very well-regarded commentator. His name is Li Yi. He is 12 years older than Jimmy Lai. And then while he was very sick, he wrote, he did a sketching of crucifixion to Mr. Li Yi. It was very inspiring. And then I think while a lot of people are in prison, like my senior classmate Benny Tai, we know that even though they are chained, but their spirit is still set free. That's very important.
I think that's a good note to end on. So thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully someday we'll be able to meet in Hong Kong.
Or outside of Hong Kong.
I think that is likely. Hopefully Hong Kong will happen.
Right. Someday we'll meet under the pot.
Yes, under the pot. You know that phrase, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Ed.
Thank you.
So I think, one of the most interesting things about all this is what's going to happen as the financial environment of Hong Kong changes. Because, like I said, people are moving their money to Singapore, people are getting their money out, people are leaving only 5-7% of their assets in Hong Kong. Because one of the things is that the regulatory environment in Hong Kong, he was saying that their equivalent of the SEC, which is the Security and Futures Commission in Hong Kong, is like being corrupted by Beijing. So if you think about what that's supposed to do, right? It's supposed to, on one hand, it can be used as a weapon to punish companies for going against the CCP. But a corrupt Securities and Futures Commission can also protect pro-Beijing companies even if they are not following the rules. And like one of the things we saw with this huge Evergrande and real estate crisis in China is that there are all sorts of shady things going on with real estate investment and over leveraging. And the CCP, like people knew what was happening, but no one was stopping Evergrande from doing it. No one was cracking down and being like, hey, you're over leveraged, or, you're using money from, borrowers in this complex to pay for the building of this other complex. And because the regulatory environment in mainland China is so corrupt, things get worse and worse and worse until suddenly big crisis.
You know who got regulated in China this summer was the tech stocks, right?
Right.
But that was a political thing going on.
Yeah. And
it had to do with Xi Jinping and his whole common prosperity thing, where he wants to crack down on certain companies that have on the surface, it's about making things fair for the common people, common prosperity, but he's really trying to crack down on companies where his political enemies have huge investments in.
Well, I think that's a good point, Matt, but I guess the issue is I don't think the CCP really cares, particularly with foreign investment. At the beginning, Hong Kong was very important to the CCP because it allowed the CCP to access global financial markets that it couldn't get into prior to that. But now over the years, they've got Shenzhen, they've got Shanghai, they've got all these other cities that are now economic centers. Hong Kong is not as important. And also they've seen the West's willingness to continue to invest in China pretty much regardless of anything they do. I mean, zero COVID was kind of like hey, maybe this isn't a great idea. But
let's do it anyway.
Well, and now that it's over, hey, let's all put our money back in China. It's a great time.
There was something about now's the time to invest in Chinese real estate junk bonds.
See, but Shelley, it's always a good time, right? Because when the market's doing well, it's like, wow, it's doing well. We should put our money there. Oh, the market's down. Well, now's the time to buy low.
I did see something about
good point.
Bridgewater is funding another billion yuan fund.
Yeah.
In China right now, Ray Dalio. But I don't know, though, because I think I think Matt's point here about Hong Kong and it being seen as a less corrupt place to put your money in China, that is going to hurt Hong Kong if that gets corrupted. Because right now, what is it? Remember the whole thing in between the U.S. and China, like the fight about being able to audit Chinese companies?
Yeah, the Hong Kong special status for U.S. trade.
And finally the Chinese Communist Party basically had to give in because all of these Chinese companies were going to lose, like they were not going to be able to list on the U.S. stock exchange anymore. And so they finally had to be like, fine, you can look at their books in Hong Kong. So the PCAOB, like the kind of like the SEC, like they went and they did this audit of companies in Hong Kong. But if the Hong Kong environment essentially is not trustworthy anymore, there won't be a place to do that. And
because Xi Jinping is a real PSAOB. Am I right?
Yes. I mean, I guess if a country wants to facilitate commerce and growth, they have to have a reliable rules-based system. That's not just rules-based on the surface, but actually rules-based. Companies need to be able to sue each other. They need to be able to defend their property, whether it's physical or intellectual. They need to be able to reliably have control over their own money and not, for example, have their corporate accounts frozen. So as that environment starts to shift, like it becomes harder and harder to do commerce.
Well, Matt, that's just your corrupt Western idea. And Hong Kong is in the process of decolonization of that sort of horrible thing. And you'll see that China's
one country, one system.
Well, socialism with Chinese characteristics is truly the best model.